having us here. I'm glad to see that the hall hasn't completely emptied out. So, despite being told many times, so thank you for being here, everybody. We get started. It's a short panel. It's only about 30 minutes, and the countdown has started already. So we're going to talk about the speed of change which has dumbfounded us all every day, be it the proliferation of platforms, technologies, or data sources. Trying to keep ahead of it is a challenge we're constantly trying to wrap our heads around. But in this constant tussle, the most important vector influencing success of brands and platforms often gets relegated to second place. Often, maybe sometimes, but it's really heartening to see how much attention we're putting behind that vector today. And that's our consumers or our users or everybody that we exist because of. And this is where our KPIs live as well. Incrementality isn't a buzzword, be it incremental users, incremental usage, or incremental shares. All ultimately boils down to this elusive yet critical factor of success. Today we have an eminent panel who will try and decode some of these nuances. Also a big hand for AdTech for putting together the most diverse panel altogether, be it from the industries we represent or where we all come from. And most importantly, this is probably one of those where the gender ratio is in favor of women. So really excited. One hand together, everybody. We want to see if you guys are awake. So a hand together for AdTech putting together. I'm going to just start with a quick introduction. I'm Sonali, and I lead strategy and transformation for SS Mediacom, the newly minted, the newest agency of WPP. We're literally 6 weeks old, but yes, this is a coming together of SS Mediacom. I'm going to start with Gavin over here, and here's my question to him. So the first point of discussion we're going to talk about is, please start with an introduction and share some of the top line findings. So Gavin and I have been talking about some research, about a very important research they've conducted, and there are some really interesting top lines from there. Please talk about those top lines and also about reinforcing the need for speed and change from what we spoke about yesterday.
Great, thanks Sonali. A pleasure to be here. Thank you AdTech for having us. So yeah, my name's Gavin Buxton. So I'm the lead for Magnite Asia, including India, which is a priority market for us. Magnite, for those not familiar, is the world's largest independent supply-side platform. Essentially, media owners work with our technology and service to best monetize their content across all screens and formats, whether that's OTT, CTV, digital out-home, audio, and brands and agencies trust us to bring ad quality, brand safe, high impact ads to them. So in relation to obviously looking at new formats, we're at the front line and working across a number of publishers on the open internet. We see a lot of the trends and changes that are happening. So in the last year we've seen huge growth across digital video streaming, digital audio, also within gaming and news and entertainment. Video streaming is an area of considerable interest in the partners we work with and the growth we've seen. So we actually conducted a study with Donata for 2,500 people, panelists, looking into the trends that we saw there. So some of the key highlights that we saw is, one, the scale that's now available in video streaming. So we're seeing 72% of adults in urban cities with internet connection are now streaming. That represents 450 million individuals in India, so a huge scale. The usage on that is also significant now. We're seeing those that are streaming are spending the most time in that platform area, spending up to 18 hours a week in that environment, more than traditional TV, UGC or social. And also 75% increase versus last year. There's an expected increase of 66% this year. From a device perspective, within India, as expected, mobile is a lead device with 88% of people activated through mobile, but a huge growth area is actually in CTV. So we're seeing 63% of that streaming audience is actually now consuming through big screen at home, representing around 9 hours per week. The user behaviours on that are similar from traditional TV. We're seeing 65% co-viewing with their partner, spouse, or with 55% with kids. The last area I call out on the research for now is actually around live streaming. So 86% of live streamers of streamers are watching live streaming content. So whether that be news, sports, reality, it's a big area of growth and obviously a big area of interest amongst our panelists as well. So some of the key highlights that we're seeing on the key trends.
Thank you. And that's something that's really interesting because CTV is something that's become a very big part of what we have all been talking about, and it's really interesting to see it validated by research as well. That yeah, it has just become an extension of our streaming audiences. So thanks for that. Moving on to you, Gulshan, I think we briefly spoke about this, but when we talk about brands creating a culture of agility and adapting to change, there isn't a more interesting example than Geo. And specifically from a sports context, moving from FIFA to now IPL, give us a quick lowdown on the journey of transformation, what inspired it and how it's going. And I'm also going to say this is not from a sales point of view, but as a brand.
Fair enough. Okay. You can hear me? Yes. I think Geo obviously started off as a telecom company, we connect. But I think our ambition was always from day one to be a platform company in multiple directions. So if you think about it, the company name is actually called Geo Platforms Limited. So within that we have Geo Sound, we have, we aggregate a bunch of channels in our set-top boxes, which is decent. I think obviously Viacom 18 buying the rights for the digital rights for IPL, besides TV rights not somewhere else, will be interesting. I think fundamentally it's about saying we connect people, we engage people with content, and you start thinking about platforms like GeoMart, you start thinking about platforms like Agio, NetNets, and our retail business, how we connect all that line between all two and three things together. Connected TV is obviously a big deal for us, since we're now the largest rollout provider in the country, and I think most of the users, if I remember correctly, 60% of our users who have a broadband connection, watch a connected TV household. Some via the set-top boxes we provide, some via dongles, some via like direct downloads on smart TVs. So it's pretty interesting from that perspective. But I think it's an interesting perspective. I think our ambition always was to open up the industry, and I think people don't remember that when Geo launched, there were about 100 million people on the internet in the country, and we're now 670 million right now. And we had the slowest internet speed in the world, pretty much among the bottom 10, 15, 20%, and the most expensive. So, you could build capacity, you give opportunities to them to do something online, and then ultimately transact and engage with them.
Thank you. Before I move to the next question, a question for the audience here. A show of hands for everybody who represents a brand, either directly or through an agency. Just a show of hands, please. A show of hands for people who represent brands from an agency or directly. Okay? And a show of hands for everybody who comes from a platform, exchange, or network background. Alright. We were trying to gauge what the makeup of the audience today is, and there'll be more questions coming your way. So, alright, moving on. We wanted to talk a little bit about channels and technology, new channels and technologies, and experimentation. And Faisal, I'm going to move over to you and specifically ask the question on how has Nestle pivoted to embrace new technologies and platforms? And typically, what is your starting point and the vision of success?
Nowadays it's really a fad to try out new things, but I think most organizations have found a method to that madness, and what we also try to follow is like a speedy discovery, a speedy pilot, and a speedy failure, and hence a speedy success is the model that we try to follow. I think it's increasingly becoming important for every organization to, of course, be in the know on what's happening, make your trials and move on. That's pretty much what we're also trying to pick up. But I think at the same time, when we're looking at pilots, it's not just with the intention to do 10 first in a year. It definitely has to have a fitment back to what we're really trying to achieve with the business objective. A combination of two is how we try to navigate this world where every other day something new is popping up.
That's good to know. Tell me, I mean, how are you approaching experimentation? Are you doing proof of concepts? Are you putting aside a budget for it? How is it going for you?
Honestly, we did think about putting aside a budget for it, and it doesn't work. It has to be a part of business as usual. What that means is you have a start point, you have an objective to take care of, either a business objective or a tactical campaign brief. Most of our pilots have to be an answer to what we want to do. They can't be a pilot if there is no fitment. So long answer short, fitment is important on the objective that you're trying to deliver. Scale, we talk about a lot of factors on how scale is relevant, how scalability is becoming very critical. But I think even to have that POC, fitment is more important. If there is no fitment, I don't know what are we even testing for, and nothing really follows so sad.
No, absolutely. I think that's one would believe that that's a starting point, and that should be the most important starting point. But sometimes it doesn't happen. So it's good to know that you guys are staying true to objectives. I think what I loved hearing was that you are experimenting, and the concept of failing fast is something that Nestle has embraced as well. And I think sometimes it's good to bust those myths, because when people are talking about CPGs, I think there is a myth that CPG players do not really want to experiment. We're seeing that change.
And it's a huge thing.
Absolutely.
I think CPGs have a very valid question back to people. What's in it for us?
Yeah.
You can't change the problem. You can't say the problem is not what the solution is. You have to answer back to the problem. And I think what CPG organizations have done is they've stuck to the problem. They said, if you can answer the problem, we're up for a pilot.
Absolutely, and I think this is really important for everybody in the room to know as well. And I saw a lot of hands going up for platforms and technologies. It has to go back to the business outcome, and delivering a business outcome. It is not experimentation for the sake of it. Moving forward, thanks for that. That was very useful. Sharon, moving on to you, I think one of the questions that we're always interested in asking, and it's been a challenge for the industry at large, is the evolution from television to audiovisual thinking. So, tell us what's worked, what are some of the techniques you've used, and what are some of the proof points that actually make sense and are able to convince advertisers, especially ones with a more conventional way of mind. And what have you observed?
Now, I think there is I think the baseline of advertising or marketing is finding the right audience, engaging with them, and then delivering brand metrics and business results, right? I think what we're really seeing the envelope being pushed is the fact that we're a powerhouse of content and storytelling and building user love, and how we bring that to bear for our advertisers and brands. And as we were just talking about CPG, so the example that I would give, which can kind of be contextual, I won't talk about Nestle customers. But I will give a CPG example, right? We have ITC Bingo Man, which actually came not just to find their audiences with our platform, but also to leverage our content. Right? What they did was they associated with Taza Khabar, and they used the lead characters in the show to actually build association with different variants that they had in different flavors, which spoke to the personality of a flavor, to the personality of the show. And then they extended that digital journey further in terms of saying, how do I deepen that engagement, drive traffic, and bringing gamification, which is deepening that journey, and then finally the last mile message.
Yes, and we'll come to that. Thank you for that. This is a good segue into talking more video, because we know that that is the single most important area of interest for our audiences, and it doesn't matter which audiences, it is the way we engage. And thank you for touching upon how important content is, and I think as long as the medium becomes your message, I think that's where the story starts to become a lot more relevant to our users. But before I start talking about increase in video consumption to OTTs or CTVs, which is a very hot topic right now, I want to circle back to you, Gavin. You mentioned audience interest in advertising, and also as a part of research, and I'm taking it forward from there. A subject that's often been a red herring in our world. So talk to us about CTVs and what are some of the trends that you're starting to witness?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting area to come up in other panels that people are open to advertising for the return of quality content. And we saw that in our research as well. So in asking people when it comes to streaming, how are they looking to activate, 80% of those asked said that they prefer to have a free service funded by advertising or a subscription service at a reduced cost through advertising. So only 20% of people were willing to pay for an ad-free experience. So the value exchange of ads for receiving quality content, I think, is very much there. A couple of other things that came up is a follow-up question was how many ads per hour would you be willing to watch? And that ranged from 1 minute to 20 minutes. So people could have put their hand for 1 minute, but the average that came back was 8 to 9 minutes per hour. So people were raising their hand freely to say 8 to 9 minutes. I mean, the word of caution on that on free to air, it can be 10 to 20 minutes per hour, so it's kind of reducing that, but they're totally up for ads. The receptiveness of those ads was interesting when it came to which platforms do you see the best receptiveness in terms of seeing ads. Streaming stood out as the largest with 64%, which was ahead of UGC and web. And also, when we get to personalization, 72% said they were more receptive to personalized ads. So those are related to the content they're watching, some lifestyle choices that are kind of being seen. So that receptiveness to tailored ads, which where programmatic comes into play, in understanding those audiences and being able to target them specifically against first-party data or otherwise is coming through. One word of caution that also came through was the ad experience. So 77% of those asked said that they would leave the platform if the ad experience was not good. So if that was too many ads, repeated ads, just ads not loading, then they would potentially move to another platform. So obviously in the competitive space, purchasing great content, creating a great environment, if the ad experience isn't great, that's where you could lose people. So from our perspective with the partners we work with, that's a key area of how we utilize our technology to allow for ad frequency controls, competitive separation, audio controls, and making sure the ad genuinely loads in time. So some key areas that we saw within it. So open to ads, but the right ads that are tailored into the key message.
Absolutely, and I think you talked about personalization at scale, which is becoming one of the single most important factors for success, especially when it comes to the digital advertising environment. Thank you for that. Moving on to you, Ghazal, how has the journey from TV to OTTs to CTV been for you? I know OTTs is not new anymore, but how are you embracing this as Nestle? How are you embracing CTV? And especially in the context of what you just talked about, and saying that contextual advertising is everything. So, talk to us about that.
Sure. No, yeah, just take a step back before we get into contextual advertising on what's happening on contextual advertising on CTVs per se. I do want to highlight that in some way you're still buying the big screen experience. People were earlier on cable, they moved on to dishes, they were on dishes, they moved on to HD, and now they're moving on to CTV. So the rules of the game, I would say, have not changed. Contextual brings an ability to add a layer onto it. What you're still doing is trying to reach out to the right people in the moment where they're willing to listen. And of course, that kind of symbolizes what our journey also has been when people are watching TV over people are watching. It sounds simplistic, but honestly, I think that's what it is. The 4 P's are still relevant. With CTV, the added benefit that we really see is it's bringing in the best of both worlds. It's bringing in the lean back experience of TV and hence, the moment where people are willing to listen, but at the same time, it's got enhanced capabilities on targeting. So in some ways, an advertiser's dream come true, but the challenge is how soon will it grow, and that's a watch out for all of us.
Thank you, and this is going to be the googly question for you, because I think, and you touched on it already. So on one end, we have, so because it's that laid back experience, it's that large screen experience in your living room, there is this need to have, and there is this preconceived feeling that it needs to have scale. But CTV is all about talking to that audience set which is right for you. So you may not get that reach, but what you are getting is relevant reach, or what you're getting is return on investment. How are you approaching this dichotomy?
So I go back to what I said earlier, it has to answer the business problem. And scale is also in some way relevant. Scale is a relative component per se. There are brands for whom 2 lakh households is enough in more reach, and there are brands for whom 200 million households are less because they want to make more profit out of selling more. So in some way, I would say for brands for whom there is limited distribution and hence that's enough and more scale, it really works out. You could drop in your TV budgets and just be on CTV. But for large advertisers, where pretty much everybody in the country, it's not an either or, it's an inclusion. And hence, I would say both of them will coexist till the time there is a larger shift to the CTV adoption.
And I love that. And I think that is what it is. It's not either or, it is about building on top of what we have as up until a time that we can actually really scale up to reach all our audiences via CTV. There is no picking and choosing. And that has always been how effectiveness has been determined, and it's for different audiences, and geographies, and then come to business outcomes and what we're delivering. Thank you for that. Yes, there is always a question of what part of the 80-20 is being measured, but we'll come back to that in the last question. I have one more question for the audience here. So a show of hands for everyone who's experimented with relatively new and untested platforms or technology in the last 6 months. And seriously, don't be shy, just put up your hands because what we want to see is the appetite for testing and figuring it out and not knowing all the answers. So not seeing enough hands, seriously, this is probably the problem with the industry right now. Not that many people willing to experiment. Okay, got it. Thanks, guys. We'll move to what we believe is the elephant in the room when it comes to measurement. Everybody has talked a little bit about it. Measuring the output of channels, technologies, and platforms in line with your overall P&L is something that each one of us worries about day and night. So I'm going to ask this question to the entire panel, but with a twist. So this question is really sent to my mind with sensibilities also into a case. So let's have some fun with this. I have a pivot for each one of you here. So Tani, we'll start with you here. Give us an example of how Hotstar has driven effectiveness for a traditional advertiser on the platform. So how have you influenced them and what has actually made it happen?
Since we're talking measurement, we're talking connected TV. Let me not talk about a single advertiser. But there are some interesting themes that we've picked up on. We've talked about the appetite to pay. We've talked about failing fast. We've talked about personalization being a requirement. And we've talked about the fact that we're trying to find relevant reach and extending the conversation to measurement, right? So I think in our biggest focus is how do we enable that measurement, which is why I won't talk to a single advertiser, but talk to that medium in terms of saying connected TV. The biggest problem statement that we've heard from advertisers is it's a shared viewing experience, but I'm looking for unique individuals that I want to reach. And therefore, within that, our focus has been to figure out a solution which enables advertisers to actually measure relevant reach and ROI on that when they look at the platform for connected TV. And Disney Plus has actually done that. We've partnered with Kantar. They've got 1 million households on the panel. They've got a regression model-based analysis tool which they built in conjunction with us, which naturally enables advertisers to measure the ROI on audiences and not households. So that's where our focus has been, and that goes across the ecosystem and not single advertiser.
Thank you for that. We'll pick this up offline, but Kush, moving on to you. Give us an example of success that you've driven on the platform and
No sales. Asking to not in sales is a different conversation, but
I know.
like
I promise you'll have the opportunity outside this room.
yeah, no, because I will sit down anyway. I think fundamentally the approach that we're looking at is twofold. One is somebody has to experiment and say, is it moving my metric? So I kind of agree with what Douglas is saying, which is like, ultimately it's a business problem. Maybe there's a marketing problem, maybe there's a reach problem, maybe there's a sales problem, whatever it is. But what we've done, and we've done with some of the fact of the clients, is we said, okay, let's go and focus on 2 or 3 markets. Let's spend enough to make a meaningful difference. And do we see shift in transactions, shift in download behavior, etc.? So I think that's one area we're looking at. And some of it's worked and some of it hasn't, to be frank. And we'll see where that kind of goes. But definitely we're seeing interest in, okay, fine, this is an audience I'm unable to reach. If I reach that audience through the GeoAds platform, will it move ultimately my measures? Will it move ultimately purchases and transactions? That's an area. I think the area that we're looking at right now is we're lucky enough to have access to a decent amount of retail data. And so what we're looking at right now is, I think it's more a vertical by vertical specific approach that says, are we seeing sales of product X increase offline and online? Are we seeing searches happen on Agio, for example? Are we seeing product X launch and we're seeing in our wholesale units that change? And I think fundamentally, I was telling you something, which is we need to move away from clicks and downloads and source ultimately market share projects. And I think that's the ambition we're trying to work for right now. And it will look different for, let's say, a handset to an FMCG, but since FMCG is kind of an important category for all of us, we're focusing on that right now.
Thank you. It's actually quite interesting to see that we're talking through the funnel right now, and traditionally AD wasn't something that was pushing the needle on performance, but we're starting to see green shoots of that, and that's probably something that some of you might want to pick up with Butch and side as well. Does from a more CPG point of view, how have you pivoted from driving media output as a vision of success to now driving business outcomes? And what does success of campaigns look like to you today?
So in some way, media was always driving visibility. I think with this added capability of platforms helping us with measurability and the points that Shani and Vijay mentioned on, you can now track mind measures, you can track the impact on audiences. I would say media is better poised to look at attribution now. It was always a driver for growth, but the attribution is more visible because of these added capabilities coming on. And hence, in some way, there are extensions to look at not just vanity matrices like CTR. It does confuse a lot of people, but eventually, at a campaign level or at a through the year level, what matters more is mind measures or sales outcomes moving, and that's where we've been able to drive more correlations on what's working, what's not working. So, in some way, I would say media was always driving growth. We're able to see more clearly on what you're doing is driving growth and what is not working, and hence those answers have become more data-backed versus I think this is working. That's where the shift is, but it was always giving into visibility and eventually sales outcomes.
Thank you. And finally, Gavin, this is for you. I'm going to ask you to proceed a little bit. So we know that the cookieless world is an inevitability. We also know that we're spoiled in how we run campaigns today. So what are some of the technologies, tools, means that we could look forward to in the foreseeable future to enable brands to continue to succeed at scale in the privacy-compliant world? I know this subject is probably for 5 hours, but for the moment, can we just talk for minutes?
Yeah, an ad panel, ad tech without talking about cookies wouldn't be an ad panel. But yeah, so obviously Google's latest notice on this is next Q4 next year is when the third-party cookie will demise from Chrome. From our perspective, with the delays that's been happening, everyone's been getting prepared up to that. But Adobe research just recently in India said 82% of brands still focus on third-party cookies in some of their activations. So there's still work to be done. But our view is that the broadcasters, media owners are the ones in control to make the future work. So it's really exciting to hear what's happening already. And understanding the audiences and be able to get data and audience and activation in a compliant way is happening first through publishers. From an SSP perspective, we're on board to help that activation across multiple publishers. A few areas we're focused on is the unified IDs that are coming through, so supporting all of those that come through at scale. Secondly, when it comes to contextual We acquired a company called Carbon that enables us to essentially publish as a DMP to understand their audience in the best way, even if they're not as sophisticated as some, so they can activate on that at scale. And also data match, so clean rooms. So we acquired a company around this area, and it's really to enable the data from the media owner and the data from the publisher that spent their time collecting it, but are afraid of passing that on. It's a case of enabling that to be matched in a clean room where it's not giving away any direct information, create a synthetic IP, and then that can be activated against. So that's kind of an area we expect to see more activations happening. I think in India that's really exciting with the scale that takes place across media owners in how that will be able to take place.
Thank you. So that was our final question, and I think that thanks for that, Kevin, because I think that's something that you're starting to integrate at the back end already with platforms, and I think ultimately the experience and the outcomes that we will start to see will, one, be compliant in a privacy first world, and second, will actually start to optimize outcomes a lot more. So thanks for that, everybody. I don't know if we have time for a couple of audience questions. Yes, no? I think we'll ask time. Shall we ask the questions? Oh. Okay, why don't you guys just connect? Anybody who has any more questions, so please connect with the panel outside. But thanks everybody, it's been a great audience, and thank you to the panel, and it's been a lot of fun talking to you. So.
Thank you.